Hi, my name's Izzy Zielinski, and today I wanted to talk about why juveniles should not be tried as adults. We're all familiar with the old saying, you do the crime, you do the time. But what do we do when there's hundreds of other factors that have yet to be considered other than the simple black and whiteness of being guilty or innocent? Here I have a graph from The Economist that shows the amount of juveniles held in adult prisons. As you can see, there was a large spike between the 90s and thousands that we've still yet to recover from and return to the low levels that we were once at in the 80s. The age of the offender plays a major role in the actions that they've committed, and this needs to be accounted for when deciding what their punishments will be. Juvie offers resources to kids that prisons do not, such as counseling, therapy, and rehabilitation, while still allowing them to serve out their sentences. Many people see juvie as lenient and not harsh enough of a punishment, but realistically it's actually more beneficial because as opposed to sending the child into an adult prison where all they're left with is a cell and then they're just sent back out into the real world to most likely go back to a life of crime. Instead, when they're in juvie, they're offered these resources so that they can work through their problems and realize the root of the problem, how to overcome it, conquer it, and get back on the right path so that when they leave the facility, they're like a new person who understands better morals and not to repeat the same crimes that landed them there in the first place. In acknowledging these factors, we could get these youths the help that they need to get them back on track without just sticking them into a cell and throwing away the key. One of the factors that come into play is the fact that these minors are not fully understanding the consequences of their actions. The SPLC stated, research has shown that the human brain does not fully develop until the mid-20s, and the portion of the brain that governs rational decision-making is the last to develop. This means a child may engage in dangerous behavior without fully realizing the risks and consequences for themselves and others. Once they're old enough to finally realize the error of their ways, it's basically too late, and they're serving out sentences for crimes that they can't even justify committing. The SPLC also interviewed one prisoner who reported, "I don't do the same things I was doing," said 22-year-old Thomas G., who's on probation for a crime he committed at age 17. "I think about the things before I do them now." These people are not the same people that they were when they went in and committed the crimes, yet they're still being detained for the crime. A large majority of these kids can't even identify the person they once were when they committed the crime, yet they're still serving the same sentences. Another factor to consider is that being imprisoned at such a young age causes them to miss out on their entire lives over one mistake that they made as a kid. There's so many core moments that these minors miss out on, like prom, homecoming, sweet 16s, graduations, anniversaries, and they don't get to experience any of these. Silence Daily states that these minors are nearly 3 times as likely to have depression or PTSD. And while in prison, there's a constant anxiety that these kids are facing for being so vulnerable while being imprisoned with these adults who have years on them, are taller, stronger. And these minors are exposed to things like gang violence and sexual assault, all while being detained in there. I have another chart from Forbes that shows that teenagers in adult prisons are twice as likely to commit suicide. As you can see, the highest rate is for those who are 17 or younger. They're so hopeless that they basically want to die before their lives have even began because they know how much of it will be wasted. And with an adult prison record like that, there's not much for them on the outside. They're filled with hopelessness and dread for the future since they can't go back and they know that their lives are just going to be wasted away in a cell. The third and last contributing factor that I'd like to mention is how likely these juveniles are to return to a life of crime once they get out of prison. They've had their whole upbringings taken from them, so they have nothing for them on the outside. They're not able to form lives or connections with anyone, and all of that was done within prison walls. So prison is basically their entire lives and all that they know. The Atlantic reported that juveniles housed in adult prisons are 36 more likely to recommit a crime. They see prison as home and spent years creating a status in there along with connections. They have jobs in there and a place that they could call home essentially. While on the outside, they have nothing because they had nothing prepared for them. So most of them already have, their families have moved on, their friends have moved on when they still basically have to pick up where they left off from being like a 13-year-old when you went in, and now you're a grown person without a life made for you. Many people even purposely recommit crimes once they're released with the intent of purposely getting caught, just so they could get back into the system, because they know that they have nothing else there for them. So in conclusion, trying juveniles as adults only seems like it would do much more bad than it would do any good, since it ruins the lives of people who have made a dumb mistake as a kid, and they now have to have their whole lives thrown away because of it. Children need room to learn and grow from their mistakes, and imprisoning them only ruins their chances of going back to a normal life. I know that many people say justice needs to be served, a crime is a crime, no matter what you do, but realistically, they didn't really know what they were doing when it happened. We all need to take into account, again, their brain development, how much of their lives are going to be wasted, and how they have basically nothing for them on the outside, so they're much more likely to return to a life of crime. It'd be much better if we could all consider just having to send minors to juvie so that, again, they can be exposed to these resources that can help them realize the error of their ways and still give them hope, as opposed to going to an adult prison cell and having to contemplate suicide with the fear of being beaten up, raped, or anything like that. And I know that a lot of people may be hesitant on this, but as I said, it's for the greater good. And a lot of families, though they want to see justice served, I'm sure a lot of them would like to know that even though this person may come out of prison as an adult, the crime can still again be committed. But if they're in juvie, it's much more likely that they're never to commit that crime again. So I hope that this helped everybody to see the benefits of a juvenile center as opposed to sending the juvenile to an adult prison. And hopefully the change can happen that we all need to benefit everybody. Bye, guys.